they have a massive crunch they have to deal with all the time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, come out of that season, they're like, pipeline's dried up. We got no leads, we got nothing. So we got to start from ground zero. The automation helps you stay consistently top of mind all year round. And that's part of that evergreen part of the profit system, is like you're top of mind all year round, not just when you need it.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Jeremy, the online ads guy here, founder of Digital Growth Marketing. Welcome back to another episode. So today we spoke to Dan Charles. Dan owns a marketing agency, and he specifically markets for event marketing companies. That's a tongue twister, but it matters because we spoke a lot about his niche, the differences, the similarity differences, what B2B owners are looking for, the 9-month sales cycle, how to overcome feast and famine cycles, just a lot about retainership and retaining clients. And he talks about how he moved across COVID, because he built his business around COVID, during the COVID time, how he lost his 50% of clients, how he rebuilt from there, the money he's won and lost from doing events and things like that. So yeah, just a lot of good, interesting anecdotes, information. And if you're into that kind of thing around B2B marketing, definitely give this one a listen. All right, thanks, guys. So guys, welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of the show. Today I'm with Dan Charles of Codarity. Good. I didn't butcher that one. Nice to have you here, Dan.
Hey, thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
No worries. So all the people that I invite on the show, for some reason, I invite people with like a deep street cred. They respect it. It's something about being around for a long time that merits like more, gives it more weight to me. And then they have experience. They all have something like deeper to talk about. There's dots to join. Man, I know that during our pre-call, you went through your history as well, especially from the agency side. Yeah, I love it because I never worked on agency side. Do you want to give the people a quick overview of that, and we go into it, man?
Yeah, sure. So I worked in hospitality doing 90, 100-hour weeks for a long time, and basically burnt out in that and needed somewhere else to do. And at that time, I was really into kind of making music and things like that. So I was doing a bit of that on the side, bit of audio engineering, studio work. And I got some kind of very much on the ground level working with a giant agency in the UK who was doing a lot of traditional advertising. I got on the ground floor, literally just publishing 100 websites a night for tiny businesses and just going through the motions. It was a grind, but I was just listening to podcasts about agencies, marketing and all that kind of stuff all the time. Yeah. So that was good. And I kind of worked my way up through that agency for a good like 6-7 years or so, I think it was. And I eventually got to their peak agency where they were serving their biggest clients. Yep. Some of them had like $1 million plus a year sort of budgets and things like that.
Amazing. Yeah.
And they had the agency I worked for, they had no clue about project management or anything. It was just literally, they had a massive sales team and then and so we just got crushed every single week by new clients coming in all the time because they had a huge database of clients and stuff. So
like a big churn and burn kind of model. Yeah,
it was very churn and burn, and it was just it was just on a proper hamster wheel all the time, every single day, and because I was very knowledgeable by that point, I was kind of like quite a dictionary of marketing stuff. Everyone, and it was an open office. Everyone used to come to me all the time for questions like leadership and people. So I never had a second to think. I never got even an hour to just plan something out before I got interrupted 5-10 times.
Yeah, you were telling me about the website. You were like handing like 70, 80 websites and like no project management tool. That was crazy, man. Nothing. Like I can't imagine it. Do you guys use Slack back then? Do you guys like have chat or something like?
So they had an internal chat, but it was a complete and utter mess as well. Like I could use other words, but it was like, but it was literally like, and these weren't like, at this point, they weren't like little websites, they weren't like little 5-page local business websites, which you could knock out in a few hours. Like, these were like quite big expense, they're charging 10, 20, 30K for this website. There was an expectation on it to do something for the business.
To do quality work. Yeah.
Exactly. They were like e-commerce, they were big sites, some of them had thousands of products and all this kind of stuff. And some of them wanted all this custom work. And I was just like, I was trying to manage like 70, 80 or so at a time.
You juggle something like that, dude. You come out of that, like you can do anything, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like we're talking about, cause I do some e-commerce cause I'm an ads expert or whatever. I do e-commerce. Them SKUs talking about Google Merchant Center. It's a nightmare. you have
Yeah.
like 5 or 6 disabled. Yeah, it's a nightmare to deal with. I
Yeah,
can't imagine
yeah.
dealing 70 of them. But yeah, coming out of that, I would say that, when I look at your own website, man, that's a good website.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So that's amazing. So when you say then you got out of that situation, you know what? I'll add one other thing that, one of the things that I don't think I ever got exposed to, by working a big agency is the pricing models. You got that, right? So I started my own thing, whatever, right? I never could, so I just charged whatever I think it was worth, right? But when you see the big bucks, like 20, 30,000, when you meet people who's not spending their own money and all that, like you have a good spectrum, you have a good feel of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, massively. So, I mean, it did open up my world to the complexity difference between running £1,000 a month Google Ads campaign and a 50 grand a month Google Ads campaign. There's a lot. People just think, oh, you just increase the budget. It's like, and then just watch your money light on fire, right? You know what I mean? Literally exactly right. Overnight. So I mean, you know that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It was like, it opened up this whole world. And obviously back then we didn't have AI or anything to help with that kind of stuff. So it was all up in your head and planning out the giant spreadsheets with millions of, thousands of skags and stuff like that for single keyword ad groups and all that kind of craziness.
That's crazy. Oh, you say you were back in old school. You were doing it as well, like skagging and all that as well. Okay, I didn't know. We didn't talk about all that. So you were in that game as well. Oh wow, no, that's really good.
Hugely. About 15 years for me in marketing overall. So SEO, Google Ads, Meta ads back in the day when you could literally run an ad and print money. Especially in your industry. Because you actually sold things that people wanted, like your events and stuff, People actually wanted to go, and you're not just selling, like pushing some course or whatever, which is a lot harder. That's right.
So that's crazy. Yeah. So how did you end up getting, so you went into the own space and you were doing pretty much was it still named Codarity?
Yeah. So I was freelance for a while after I left the agency, because I just kind of burnt out, and I'm like, what would be so bad about me not going back? Hit up friends and family and said like, has anyone need a website or anything, like, so they all slung me some work, and I was like, this actually covered me for a month and a half. Went and did some networking, got a few agency partnerships, like just doing a bit of white labeling and stuff. And suddenly I had a bit of a runway. I'm like, I managed to cover the first 3 months and build it from there. So I did the freelancing for a while. And it was almost a little bit of a backlash from that agency burnout piece. I wanted to treat clients really ethically and look after them. And I still absolutely do. That's still 100%.
I think you do. Because you talk about your how little you churn as well, right? You take a lot of pride in that. And I picked that up during our pre-call. I want to talk about white labeling. I think freelancing white labeling is it's not frowned upon, but like, I think it's a ticket, like in music, ghost producing. Dre and all them always had ghost producers, but that's how people come up. You know what I mean? You go from ghost producing to, do your own little sounds. Yeah. So no, I've done white labeling for a long time.
Exactly. And I think it's a great way forward. You can learn a lot about working with a lot of clients and stuff like that. I got to work with quite a few different agencies, and I obviously got my own clients here and there and stuff as well. So,
for sure.
So it helped build up a bit, and the agency work was quite regular. So it was like, this is actually paying my rent now, you know what I mean? And stuff. So that was quite nice. So I did that up until like 2019, where I then launched Codarity. And I did launch just a broad agency, so it wasn't like in the event specifically, but I'd stopped kind of doing events at all by about 2017. And so 2019, I was already freelancing by that point, so sort of like 2015, 2016. Codarity kind of launched, and it was serving a variety of different clients. So again, because I'd had that experience working in so many different niches and stuff, I did have that depth of like, this is how mortgages work, this is how finances work, this is how, all this kind of different lead generation work, which was quite useful because I could talk to them about that.
For sure.
And it was really kind of like, after like a good several years of doing that, I was like, this is still a bit of a slog. I'm constantly reinventing the wheel for every client, and it was like, I genuinely found like it was much harder to scale the agency when you're trying to serve everyone and be everything for everyone. And I was like, well, who are our best clients on our list? And they were events clients. And I was like, well, I know a lot about events. I've actually got a load of experience there. And so I just started talking a lot more strategically with those clients specifically about their challenges, their needs, what they would really want from a good agency who looks after them. And there are as well the ones who've been sticking around the longest as well and stuff, you know what I mean? So
thread. You can see the thread that goes through it. So it's
100%. Yeah.
about the because I know you're on your Podmatch profile. You talk a lot about scaling the events from like 60 men to 3,000 or like those kind of numbers. I never understood what you meant by that. Are you talking about like you held some events yourself? And
So that used to be me running the events, absolutely. And I started just really small, completely bootstrapped, just doing like local little events and stuff like that. 60 person or so, like 50, 60 people. And just getting those in. First few tanked, lost loads of money, well, not loads, it's 60 people. It wasn't tens of thousands, but but then kind of made some. I was like, right, learn from that, built them up, got those consistently sold out. I'm like, okay, let's try 100, 150, 200 cap kind of thing, meetups and stuff. I did quite a lot of live music and things as well, sort of things like on the events scene, club scene and stuff. But I also kind of did like quite a lot of meetups and kind of local meetups and things, which worked really well too, And that was very much on the B2B side, and that was when I was still working in events quite a lot as well. So I got to speak to a lot of vendors and businesses, and they were like, you know what? Like we have great seasons, and then we have seasons which eat all our profit for the year. Sort of thing. So I was like, why is that? And they're like, it's all word of mouth. And I was like, yeah, I hear that.
So that is interesting because you think that that stuff there is a seasonal factor, right? Like second half of the year it ramps up or whatever, and the certain parts of the year ramps up. So then you on your website, you start talking about the EEPS system, the Evergreen Event Profit System. So that was created more to overcome this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's a good system. Yeah. I'll share the screen as you talk about it. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, sure. So basically the Evergreen Event Profit System is our own framework and methodology that I kind of developed here, which is based on kind of 4 key pillars, which is authority, attraction, automation, and architecture. And I believe that those 4, when it comes to marketing, are the things which give any business, but specifically event businesses, the infrastructure to actually scale and compound. And one thing we found with so many event businesses, they go, we tried Google Ads, it didn't work, and they gave it 3 months, and then they're restarting from zero every single quarter, right? And what we found is with this methodology in place, you don't need all 4 at once, straight out the gate. Sometimes you're like, this agency's been doing fantastic at building their authority, PR, podcast appearances, getting featured. They're great at that, but they have nothing in the way of tracking to understand what's actually driving pipeline for them. Or they don't have any way of actually scaling their reach to kind of reach new clients. So although they have all this authority, which helps when they get referrals, they have no way of reaching new people with all that weight, So
this is very B2B, right? So this is like very, very strong B2B. And do you, so maybe that's a wrong way to ask the question. Like, can you see this working for outside of events, like many niches, or is it just strictly events kind of thing?
So, I mean, you could take some of the key principles from it, because like good marketing is good marketing at the end of the day, But I think the key thing which this really stands on its own legs for is the fact that it's about how all these combine together in a very specific way to position event businesses, because ultimately event business is very relational based, they're very, as soon as they get a good client or a good vendor, they stick around for years and years. And that's kind of how we approach things. We do what it takes to look after those clients. And sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. We, being completely transparent with you, we've had times where stuff has not gone right with clients for several months. And we've even done things where we're like, you know what? Fantastic client here. We really care about them. We know we can get this working. We're going to do X, Y, and Z here for several months. And then they turn into like our longer standing best clients, because we care about the outcome for them. We care about them.
For sure. And, I can see it for sure. Yeah. And then, so we talk about this other 2 steps in there, which is the part that I kind of read, but I didn't really understand. Maybe you can help us decipher those, the other 2. So you got the attraction. Yeah. Then you got the automation, and then the architecture. Yes. Love to hear more about that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So the automation piece is about like, one thing with event businesses, right, in particular, is like they are working they have busy seasons, they have quiet seasons. And the problem is when they're in the busy season delivering, they're not working the pipeline, they're not doing the marketing, they're not building that infrastructure, they're not working the leads as well. They have, they have a massive crunch they have to deal with all the time. And then they're like, come out of that season, they're like, pipeline's dried up. We got no leads, we got nothing. So we got to start from ground zero. So the automation is about how do we set up CRMs? How do we set up nurture sequences? How do we set up AI? How do we set up filters, lead scoring? How do we set up kind of funnels and all these types of things, which continually compound on that pipeline long term for them and give them more of their time back. So when they're actually coming back,
So it's not a waste, even though if it's not even though if it's not in the right season, that play still yields results.
100%. Because when you think about it, no one clicks on one ad and then goes, I've got 250,000 to spend on a conference, right? They don't and then they just go, let's sign on the line, let's get it going. That can take months and months of agreements and arrangements, and it's buyer by committee. There's multiple people in that committee. We see clients, some of the biggest deals we see clients get, that started 9 to 12 months ago.
For sure.
So the automation helps you stay consistently top of mind all year round, and that's part of that evergreen part of the profit system, is like you're top of mind all year round, not just when you need it. The automation helps, sort of thing. So
nice. That's amazing. And I mean, with some of the stuff I want to go into is like the other posts that you've been doing that's very specific. I was reading about it and I loved it, and I'm going to just pull some of these up. I thought they were great.
Thanks for that. I mean, like I don't get a massive amount of engagement on LinkedIn, but you'd be surprised how many leads I actually get.
I do. Because
I saw your post and clicked on it and like, I really liked it and want to have a chat. And I'm like, great. And I got 150 impressions.
That's exactly right. Speaking of that, I was talking to someone this morning on a call, and I haven't seen you for so long. She goes, really? I see you all the time because of my LinkedIn crap, like my podcast and my snippets. It works. Do you know what I mean? Like she thinks it's really all the time. So this one here, I was reading this. I think a lot of these apply to me. Like referrals feels like a strategy until you have to forecast one, right? Like how true is that? And there was another one was the best month of the market is the one you're too busy to do it in. Like, wow, like that could apply to a lot of businesses. I didn't understand the 10th one, and nobody builds this industry. I didn't understand this one. So
so I mean, that's kind of like, other service businesses, they're doing great things. I'm not discounting them at all, but no other industry gets people together in a room, collaborating, talking, sharing ideas, communicating, socializing, interacting with each other in the same kind of way that events do in any way, shape or form. And that's one of the core reasons why I love the industry is because I think it's future proof. I think even more so with AI and all the fakery and everything coming out online, people are going to want more and more real experiences where they're actually in the room with each other. But B, it's a great way of building community. And I think community is lacking in many ways. I think that social aspect is lacking a lot. Younger generations are feeling more and more lonely than ever before, 100%. Right? And we know that the facts are all there. Events are one of the only things that still are bringing people. They're not dividing people. They're bringing people together, and that's kind of why they build something that no one else is building.
Okay. So I now I understand what you mean by that. In terms of like, I want to go back to when in 2019, when you were like starting to get into Codarity and all that, COVID happened. And I spoke to you, like I took when the word COVID comes up, because I started my business about 2018, 2019. And because I can't write for shit, I can't copyright to save my own life. I thrived in e-commerce, right? And e-commerce was just, you couldn't step a foot wrong in e-commerce. That's how I rode the wave to where I am today. And now I'm a lot better at a lot of other things, but I survived because of e-commerce. And then there's people doing travel, people doing hospitality. I haven't spoken to many people with events, and you just see this look on their face like, oh my gosh, I'm not going through that again. But you never had that when I spoke to you about it. It was all right for you? Didn't impact you that much?
It did. I lost about 60% of our clients over COVID sort of thing. Yeah. Because a lot of them were like, some of them were in, but again, I had this big kind of coverage of different clients. It wasn't huge, but I had people who were like, they were like mortgage brokers and stuff. So no one was buying. And then I had people who were doing travel and stuff. So they got it. I had clients in the events industry, and they had to shut down and like lost like 40, 50% of their staff. So
Yeah.
it was really quite painful. But
Yeah.
again, the events industry was the one which I helped those clients actually pivot to doing more virtual events and hybrid events and stuff,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
so we built a lot of that out with them, and we're like, yeah, this
Yeah.
is the one thing you can do right now to actually keep the lights on, because it
Good.
was 100% fire sale for events. Like, it was just like there was businesses going under every single week.
Yeah.
And some of those clients are still with us today. Like, do you know what I mean? And
Awesome.
I'm not saying it was just us who saved them,
Yeah.
but generally it was quite impactful to help them do that pivot over that time.
That's nice. And then you also mentioned Meetup a second ago.
Mm-hmm.
When you're doing, we have Meetup in Sydney, Australia, and all that. I've been to some of them. I wouldn't say I never go. I've been to some of them. I don't know how well, like, it's organized and everything. It's well organized. I don't know how hard it is. It seems very hard to get something together. Yeah. And then I've been to ones where it's kind of tanked. No one showed up, and you got to estimate the numbers. I think my comment to all this is, I think once you know how to organize one of these, like the way you've done them in the past, I think that's a skill for life, man.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was very much, and that's why I've got such a thick skin, is because I worked in the events industry for so long. I did have it where I was running events where it was like, okay, attendance, like, pre-sale is very low. Yeah, so it's like I could lose tens of thousands of pounds right now, sort of thing. And then on the night, it's like demand shows up, and I'm like, oh, okay, we actually made a profit. Nice, So I kind of understood that, because the uncertainty of that would have a downstream effect on all the suppliers, like the AV companies and everyone who was putting on the events and stuff, right? But with the meetups and all that kind of stuff, it was like, what I found was, like, a lot of it was, I ran loads of ads, actual paid ads.
Not on Meet, whatever platform.
Not on Meet. I run them on Facebook, Google, and all that.
Yeah, right. Okay,
and no one else was doing that, though, mate. No one was doing that.
Yeah.
They were just like, here's a Facebook event for it. Join the event. Yay. And then they're like, no one showed up. And I just go, bosh, here's £1,000 this month on Facebook ads. And everyone would see it.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, no, that's amazing. So, no, that's amazing, because I guess the downstream part, the part that really I feel like I don't have it in me is telling people, goes, oh, look, no one showed up. So you just got to perform anyway to like 10 people. Like, you're here anyway, like to a musician or something. Like, I think that'll crush me. I think my skin's not thick enough for that. That's what it comes down to. Yeah, cool, amazing.
Absolutely, yeah.
for your own Codarity, what are some unicorn clients you're looking for now? Like, is there people that you're going after now?
Yeah, so as we've kind of progressed along and got a lot more advanced with what we're sort of doing, I mean, we are a multi-channel, multidisciplinary, small agency. We have a small team here. I'm very systems, workflow, automated. So we deliver really good results at a very good cost to value ratio, in my opinion, compared to anyone else. So we are kind of punching a bit more upstream now, and we have quite strict criteria on who we actually do work with. So I don't necessarily have a hit list of specific like top 10 or 20 or so, but generally what we tend to work best with is event businesses who are, they might be doing sort of really like a minimum sort of million to 3 million a year sort of thing. But we have a lot of clients in the sort of 10, 20, 30 million a year sort of range now. They're doing a lot of events per year. Yeah. And they've done a lot of the kind of groundwork, and and they've hit plateaus, right? Because they've got maybe 3 or 4 or 5 different agencies all doing different things for them. Yeah. And they're spending hundreds of thousands a month on all of that sort of stuff. Yeah. And it's like, or quarter sort of thing they're spending on that. Yeah. And it's like, and nothing's really joining up. And they're like, we kind of keep hitting this plateau, or one channel or something builds up and then one tanks, and then that agency is making an excuse about X and that one's making an excuse about Y.
Yeah, finger pointing. Yeah.
Finger pointing and stuff. Yeah. And what we really come in is just kind of look at the entire kind of, those 4 pillars for them, really. Yeah. And part of that is basically doing a very detailed, full, structured, paid assessment up front. And I think part of the reason why we do that is, and we charge a good fee for it as well. It's not like a little fee. It's a lot. And a lot of them go, that seems a lot for an audit. I goes, it's not an audit. It's a full 12-month strategic diagnosis, right, for you. It's not just it's not an SEO agency giving you we ran this through this tool and we gave you 12 red lights you need to fix. It's not that at all.
Yeah.
you know. But what they find is when they get it back, they're like, I feel like you've actually just shown me how to break through the 3 or 4 plateaus we've just got. How do we deploy this? And the point is that the strategic assessment includes how to execute on that and how best to execute on that.
So they could execute. Real quick on that, right? Because I'm a very curious person. I don't want to share anything like, say, confidential or secret source wise, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of event company, what does, like, in terms of e-commerce company or like a B2C company, I know what the plateaus look like. Right. Because they are burnt out themselves, or they have stock issues. They kind of have like running out of stock, or they kind of
logistics,
total addressable
shipping,
market.
all this
all that stuff. So what does it look like for an events company? Because I imagine they could be happy at some plateaus, right?
Yeah.
They could be happy because look, we got our people. That's our team. We got our, 20 events. We know how to handle these, and that's it. We're good for now. Right.
Yeah.
But what does going to the next level, like, what does the plateau look like usually?
So oftentimes, we talk to businesses like that, and they're like, we're quite happy where we are. We only want this and that. And we're like, cool. We're probably not the agency for you. We're here to help businesses grow and scale long term. It doesn't have to be aggressive growth. It doesn't have to be like, 10x your business in 3 years or anything like that. Nothing like
Marketing,
that.
Bro.
It could be like, we want to do an extra few million a year in revenue. Okay, cool. We can absolutely help with that sort of thing. But some of the ceilings we definitely see regularly are they rely very heavily on word of mouth and not really built any of the other infrastructure around capturing people, putting them forward as a viable person. So they don't really get shortlisted for a lot of like RFPs, requests for proposals because of that. They don't know that they missed out on these big opportunities because they just weren't visible to
That was one
people.
of their points on your 10 list of 10. You didn't even know they missed out on a quote. Yeah.
Exactly. They don't even know. And then it could have been a dream client who they could have served better, know. And a lot of the time because of that. But so another one is that it's very scattered for them. They have freedom over certain periods of time where they've got quite a bit of time, and then they hit a massive crunch, and then they're kind of completely compressed and their team's slammed, and they're like, we can't do anything other than deliver logistics.
You help them systematize it. You help them put in system. That's where the niching comes in, because what worked for a company US probably also works in UK with the same size. And you go, look, I got a case study here. It's worked. Okay. That's where all the super niching comes in, man. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's what we found is that they hit those kind of plateaus. Yeah. And it's like, we understand how to break through them. And the thing is, we don't just go throw loads of money at ads. It'd be great, because that's not always the problem. There's often like lots of micro things. And it's like, we found that out of these 20 things, these 5 are the things that if you actually work on them, you get the throughput.
I speak to a lot of marketing people, and I have to say, like, speaking to you, like, I know when I'm talking to someone who knows what they're doing. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know what you're doing, and I can see it because marketing is so scattered, right? Like, I didn't know when I first starting ads, but ads one of like the last things you do. Yeah. Everything's got to be cleaned up and everything. You call it like, most businesses have tried marketing pieces. I call it like random acts of marketing. Yeah. Random acts of kindness. Yeah. Random acts of, like, they do a bit of this. It's whoever told something at a barbecue and they go, let's do it. And as ads people, and we don't have long contracts, right? Because our gigs are lucrative. We lose a lot of gigs to these, random, whispers and,
shiny object syndrome.
Shiny
all the
objects.
time,
We lose so much for that.
Yeah, we tried outbound for a quarter. It didn't work. It's like, cool. Yeah. Did you actually do all of the steps consistently for a year? No, because we have clients who make 7 figures a month from outbound alone, sort of thing.
So, definitely. Cool, man. Amazing. Look, this has been a real fruitful chat. I know that your website is Codarity, Codarity.com. And you're very active on LinkedIn. I think people should connect with you on there and ask you any questions. It's going to be hard to get hold of Dan probably in a few years when he gets even bigger. But right now he's still open to taking on events related clients. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So they can check the website, go to the Get Started and book an appointment. And generally it's a fairly friendly chat. And it's honestly, are you good for us? Are we good for you? And like I said, there's the no obligation project to know what it's like to work with us if we are a good fit. And then from there, there's no like forced arm or anything moving forward.
No
it's like, is this right for you? And for us, great. If not, no worries.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's an ongoing thing, man. There's no point getting him across the line and you guys don't really like each other or it's not a good fit, because you got to work with
Absolutely.
them for a
Yeah.
long time, man. Do you know what I mean? Like there's no
For
point
years
for
and
the
years. Yeah.
years and
Yeah.
years,
You
bro.
know, so it's got to be
I'm
right.
on the same boat as you. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Dan, for coming on the show, man. Make sure we get all the show notes inside all the links in the show notes for you as well.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks, Jeremy. I've really genuinely enjoyed this conversation today. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
That's all right. Done. Hey, what's up? Jeremy Yang, the online ads guy here, owner of Digital Glass Marketing. If you found whatever you're watching helpful, you found it interesting, like, subscribe, comment, suggest other topics you think we should cover here. We've aimed to release weekly episodes, helping SMEs with marketing, advertising, talking to professionals about growth, processes, all that good stuff. All right, see you on the next one.